Hello, my name is Tate Chamberlain. Welcome to the Interchange Symposium's XChange podcast, where artists, activists, and entrepreneurs with different ideas and perspectives come together and address multiple topics and provoke thoughtful dialogue. Today's topic, cannabis. The topic of cannabis is not new on the American conversational stage, although the focus of that conversation has changed dramatically over the past few decades, when states started putting the question of legalization to the voters. As of 2016, Montana is one of 25 states that have legalized medical cannabis use, with 4 states, Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, already allowing recreational use. Despite that, cannabis is still illegal at the federal level and remains a Schedule I drug, putting it in the same class as heroin, ecstasy, and bath salts. While there is a growing body of evidence for the legitimacy and effectiveness of medical cannabis, the conversation over its legalization still echoes the gateway drug arguments that have been offered by those opposed to its recreational use. Fear over the societal effects of cannabis use still haunt the discussion, and that fear can play a big role in how people feel about it. While this is a nationwide topic, it has special resonance in Montana. This November, Montanans will vote on ballot initiative I-182 that wants to make it easier for patients to get medical cannabis and make it easier for doctors and patients to get it to them. The existing law, Senate Bill 423, has come under fire for making it harder for patients to get access. Currently, medical cannabis providers can only supply up to 3 patients each and limits doctors to prescribing it to no more than 25 patients each year. Proponents of I-182 say that the current laws keep the treatment from patients who need it, while those who oppose it argue that it will result in more of the drug making it into the hands of recreational users, leading to a pot shop in every corner. While these laws are specific to Montana, the worries and concerns on both sides can be heard all across the nation. That's why Interchange hosted this dialogue, recorded on October 4th of 2016 at Blunderbuss, an artist, activist, and entrepreneur's makerspace in Bozeman, Montana, and XChange's creative home. First up on the panel is Tayln Lang, a Marine veteran and cannabis patient for a PTSD diagnosis.
There's 2 avenues of fear here. There's the fear that patients aren't going to be able to use this therapeutic herb in a way that is going to benefit them. And then there's a fear that's being pushed on us by the opposition of there's going to be pot shops on every corner. There's this is just a crazy unregulated thing, and it's a fear-based tactic that the opposition is using to push their agenda.
Next is Katie Mazurek, a lawyer and current cancer patient who, because of current laws, cannot find a medical cannabis provider to take her on as a patient.
Right now, where I am, you're either kind of with me or you gotta get out of my way, because I gotta get through this. I gotta get healthy. I gotta get through cancer. So there's not a lot of room for middle ground on my issue.
Sitting next to Katie is Dan Dunlap, a former DEA agent with years of in-depth field work in drug law enforcement.
There are predators out there, and I don't mean to say, I don't mean to start fear. I'm telling you for real life predators that don't care whether any of us in this room live or die. They do care about the dollar. They do care about what new vehicle they're going to buy, and the multi-millions that they'll make off this industry.
After Dan, we have Jeannie Brown, an organizer with the Montana Organizing Project, who wants access to cannabis to help treat her granddaughter's seizure disorder.
My granddaughter's brain is so atrophied from her seizures. She's not going to live much longer. I'm not going to have that opportunity to try and stop the seizures because I am so afraid of being arrested. These are a lot of people like that. My granddaughter is not unique, but I am so afraid because of this. Everybody is so paranoid about this.
Then we have Bob Devine, owner of Spark One Dispensary in Bozeman and medical cannabis patient.
Thousands of people are losing access to what they deem medicine, and there's some grave consequences for that. It's very important to me.
Rounding out the panel is Stephen Zabawa, the director of SafeMontana, an organization dedicated to combating illegal drugs in the state.
I believe in natural highs and not fake highs. I believe it is addictive, and it's got all sorts of issues that the white stuff gets involved. And I've seen thousands of people get hurt from that stuff. So totally opposed to that. I just drink water and be healthy and happy, climb some mountains, have some fun.
To get a sense of what drives their passion for this issue, we wanted to know what brought each of our panelists together under one roof. Here are their stories.
I want to try it with my granddaughter, who has uncontrolled seizures, and she has been on numerous anti-seizure medications. None of them have worked, and I want to be able to try that, but I'm too scared, because not because of the state of Montana, but because of the federal government.
I care about cannabis because as a veteran and a survivor of trauma, I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and I've seen the amazing way that it can help people that are survivors of trauma manage their symptoms of PTSD, and particularly our veterans.
I'll take it. Well, first and foremost, because thousands of people are losing access to what they deem medicine, and there's some grave consequences for that. It's very important to me. I'm a patient also, but that's it. Patience.
As a law enforcement officer, a former law enforcement officer, I've seen the seedier side of cannabis and the use and exploitation, in my opinion, of the drug, and especially when it comes to medical use. And I think that there are members of our community that exploit people, like Jeannie's granddaughter, and like Katie and Tayln, even, to for their own gain. And those are the people that, in my experience, I've targeted.
Steve and Katie? Go ahead, Katie.
Well, I care about it because I'm suffering through cancer. And one of the things that I'm having to deal with increasingly as I go along through chemotherapy, 3 surgeries and 6 weeks of radiation that I have upcoming, is nausea and pain. And what I've been given to deal with that are opioids. And with addiction in my family, opioid use is a slippery slope. And I'm already seeing myself needing more to take care of my symptoms. And that absolutely terrifies me. Opioid use is much, 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 much scarier than marijuana use to me. And I just want to put it out there and be one of the first to say, I was deeply affected by a lot of the fear rhetoric and not wanting to even use marijuana, but now I realize that it's something that could really improve my quality of life and many of the patients, other patients that I know, so that's why I care so much.
Well, on there's really 2 uses for marijuana. One is to get high, recreation, and one is to get well or to get some relief. And I voted for medical marijuana in 2004. I believe that there is good use there, and it just needs to be harnessed and brought to the market and allowed to have it in all 50 states, paid for by medical insurance, and where malpractice insurance doesn't prohibit it. So we need to get that done. We need to make sure it's effective and safe for the different people for different reasons. I've seen a lot of good. I've talked to thousands and thousands of people, and where they testify to me that it's done good. So I have no reason to doubt them. So, but at the same time, there's all these issues with the DEA, the FBI, and so forth that creates the recreational piece, and I'm totally adamant opposed to that. I believe in natural highs and not fake highs. I believe it is addictive, and it's got all sorts of issues that the white stuff gets involved, and I've seen thousands of people get hurt from that stuff. So, totally opposed to that. I just drink water and be healthy and happy, climb some mountains, have some fun.
With cases to be made for the need for medical cannabis, as well as concerns from federal law enforcement, we have to know, is it dangerous?
I don't know of anybody who's personally died from cannabis, but I also live a pretty sheltered life. As far as harming, I do know, because we go to Children's Hospital every 3 months, and Colorado it's legal, and there's a really good one that's really helping with seizures. But as my granddaughter's doctor explained, you hear about all the positive stories. You're not hearing about the kids ending up in the emergency room because their parents decided to put the oil in the butter and feed it to their kid. So that's why I would really like to see it regulated and standardized. But I think people still should have access to it.
Okay. And if I may, on that note, I've seen with my own eyes a lady driving down the road with her elbows on the steering wheel as she was lighting her pipe. And I drove past, and my partner and I were looking, did you see that? And she was lighting her pipe and driving with her elbows. And so naturally we stopped her, and she was cited. She wasn't even arrested. She was cited. But my goodness, I think when you add a motor vehicle into the equation and someone, I mean, how many people have told me I drive way better stoned than I do drunk? And for me, that's not a good answer. I think no one should be driving under the influence of anything, much less another drug under the influence. What caused traffic accidents and deaths, and I think in that respect it has.
There was a federal attorney who was tasked with going through and looking at cannabis and the potential harm that it can cause to individuals, and he said that cannabis in its natural form is one of the safest therapeutic substances known to man. And there's a specific reason for that, is that the human endocannabinoid system does not have receptors in certain areas of the body that are responsible for respiration, for keeping you alive. And that's the reason why the human body can tolerate such high doses of cannabis, and it's still non-toxic and won't cause a fatal incident. As a matter of fact, there's never been a fatal incident on record ever of anybody dying from cannabis toxicity.
At this point in the conversation, Stephen Zabawa from SafeMontana brings up the familiar argument of cannabis being a gateway drug to harder and more dangerous substances.
There's two things here also. One is, will it actually kill you? Can you overdose on it and die from it? And I'm not aware of anybody that has, from SafeMontana standpoint. Are thousands of people being killed by marijuana every year? Absolutely. Through depression, suicide, car accidents, you name it, jumping off buildings, eating too much and doing stuff, schizophrenia, all sorts of things that are there. So we have to be very careful when we have addictive personalities. The other problem is, if you take the green stuff, you are more likely to use the white stuff.
You're saying it's a gateway drug?
Absolutely, yeah, and it's there, and it's proven, and you just go look at anybody. And then the problem is, a lot of the people that sell the green stuff recreationally have the white stuff also, like it's been offered to my son. Sure, it's free, try it. Well, that's meth. The problem is there's a lot of bad actors in the business. They just had one busted for 1,000 plants and 100 plants here in Bozeman at Four Corners, the Campbells. I mean, you cannot have bad actors if you're going to do medicine, right? If you're going to do recreation and you're going to play with it, you suffer the evils of that thing. Addiction, as well as upgrading to higher drugs, meth and heroin and all the other problems. We met with 150 narcotics officers here in Bozeman here about 3 months ago. And what did they tell us? Every time they have a bust of white stuff, there's always green stuff laying around. It's just a natural pattern to go up to this stuff in general. Now, can people smoke marijuana and just be happy with that? Yes. Lots of people do it that way.
The rest of the panel was pretty quick to respond. Here, Jeannie Brown and Bob Devine bring up another major issue: the influence of the pharmaceutical industry and the role of lobbyists in determining which substances are legal and illegal.
Cannabis is getting such a rap for gateway drug, this, that, and the other thing, and talking about deaths and quality of life. Cigarettes and alcohol are legal, and I think there's a lot of deaths attributed to both of those, but nobody's trying to outlaw those. And so that, I think, is a little unfair, If we're going to have an honest dialogue about addictive substances, we need to be looking at all of it.
Prescription painkillers.
Yes.
Kill countless people every year. Marinol has killed people. That's a fact. Comments like the green stuff, white stuff are actually very disrespectful to myself, to a lot of people in here, to Katie. They're antiquated terms, kind of reefer madness style terms. As Tayln touched on, nobody's died from actual physical use of cannabis. And I actually disagree with that cannabis is a gateway drug. I don't believe that has been proven. There are studies that show that it's not a gateway drug. So I disagree with that completely. We could go on and on about this one, but it's really round and round.
Katie?
My concern when I hear the opposition speak about it is we have to purify, take all the bad actors out of it, take everything, make it completely perfect before we're willing to put this in place. The issue that I have is, one, I'm sick right now. Two, we know it's impossible. There's always going to be bad actors. There's bad actors in every single profession that we've touched, and it's not a reasonable impediment to all of the good that we know that this drug can do. To me, it's finding a few bad sheep and slaughtering the herd. And it's hard for me to contain my emotion on that because I'm the herd. I'm the guy that needs it, not in 5 years or 50 years when we get it through the federal government, we get it, prescribable and perfect. What I believe 182 brings us is reasonable and safe access that I feel comfortable with, and that I think will improve, again, the quality of life for thousands of Montanans. Now.
May I?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with Katie's statement that there needs to be some access and regulated, and it's never going to be perfect. She was very on point. Illegality permeates our lives, no matter what it is. But when it comes to, and also, Jean, with what you said about tobacco and alcohol, what's the common denominator between the cannabis, alcohol, and the tobacco is the money that's behind it. That's why tobacco and alcohol are not prohibited now. It's because there's way too much money behind it, and pharmaceutical. The money behind pharmaceuticals and cannabis truly is the reason why it's proliferated so much, and that's something that we all need to be very aware of.
So the lobby behind each industry
is huge.
Yeah, Bob?
I don't necessarily believe that people use those substances because of the money behind it. I mean, there's money behind the auto industry, but we all want to drive cars. So, yes, is there a connection between the two? Yes, there's lobbying for lots of things, without question. Mm-hmm. But alcohol is not necessarily illegal because of lobbying money. I mean, Prohibition was overturned for lots of different reasons, not just from lobbying entities. The cannabis industry is very small comparatively to a lot of those, and the actual lobbying money being spent in Washington right now is very, very small. I mean, there's one full-time lobbyist in Washington, D.C. that works on this, as opposed to how many lobbyists that work in Washington, D.C. on a given day? A lot more than one.
These statements struck a chord with the audience, so we passed the microphone to another veteran who shared his experience with pharmaceuticals and the familiar refrain about what dangers can come from them.
I hear what everybody's saying. As a disabled veteran, I was almost killed by Big Pharma. So it's very hard for me to sit here and listen to the opposition say we need to trust pharmaceuticals when we put our faith in the big pharmacies when we come back from war, and then you end up dying in a hospital because Big Pharma has given you medications that are bad for you. And then you hear things like, oh, cannabis is a gateway drug, but then you see the U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch give a speech saying opioids are now the new gateway drug. We're giving our kids Adderall, Ritalin, people are dying from fentanyl, and nobody wants to address this. Why? Because the lobbyists are behind this. They're pushing all this money. If we stopped allowing these lobbyists to dictate everyday American lives, we wouldn't even be sitting here having this conversation. The truth of the matter is Big Pharma is killing us, and cannabis is not. And that is what we need to address.
Jacob? Yeah, I'm kind of along the same lines there about the Attorney General came out and said that the biggest gateway drugs are actually coming from the pharmaceutical companies. And so when you say that we need to put it in the hands of pharmaceuticals, you're basically telling us to take a plant that is not killing people and giving it to the people that are causing the most people to switch between legal drugs, which are pharmaceuticals, which are already dangerous, and those are the largest leaders to heroin and lots of other street drugs. So I don't believe that that's necessarily the right way to do it, and it should be more regulated, of course. Higher quality product. We should have the THC levels and CBD levels all to be accurately displayed and things like that, especially when kids are having overdoses and things like that. But prohibition is actually causing a lot of that issue to be put forward, I believe, and 182, I think, is going to help clear up a lot of that.
Clearly, people are wary of the potent and potentially harmful drugs that are already on the market. So why wouldn't a bill like Montana's I-182 help them by making access to cannabis easier and safer? Stephen Zabawa had a couple of points to make about that. Take a listen.
Normal medicinal protocol, I believe, is really smart. So it's a simple thing like testing whatever is good that comes out of marijuana. The derivatives, the organic derivatives and components need to be tested on humans and rats and just see what happens. If you're pregnant, if you have a heart issue, if you got diabetes, how does it interact with all those things, right? If you're psychotic, how does it interact with you? You need to know those things. There needs to be a warning label on something. You need to know what your dosage rate. I like the point there. So we just need the basics thing. You need clinical training handing the stuff out. A typical pharmacist goes 4 years undergrad and another 4 years afterwards to study the human body to know what he's handing out or she's handing out. A doctor, our daughter just got done with surgery school, 13 years to be able to be a surgeon up at St. Vincent's. That's the right type of deal where you got a surgeon and a pharmacist and a studied product that's very effective, and whatever the negatives are unknown. And that's you're going to have more good outcomes that way than just handing out stuff and saying, take what you want. Go try it at your house, grow it at your home. The big pharma question is that who is going to deliver and distribute the medicine, and how is it going to be safely done? I-182 is a horrible set of rules and regulations. There's no prescription, there's no monitoring, there's no clinical training. I mean, the whole thing was written to be able to put pot shops on the corner. Now, they did a couple good things. Well, I know, but let me just tell you, there was a couple good things that were done in the deal, which was testing, and there's like 2 good things that they came with. But we sat down with the Cannabis Association in 2015 and said, will you just get a doctor involved on a regular basis? If you get pain medication this way, you only get like 7 days worth now. You don't get a full year to go do whatever you want, It just doesn't make sense. So my point is that we just need to be sensible about the regulation, sit down around a table with Bob and the team, and do the right thing. I-182 is not the right thing, in my opinion.
Fear of big pharma, fear of medical cannabis abuse, and rampant recreational pot use. We cannot say that only one side has a monopoly on fear in this discussion. It's such a huge motivating factor on all sides. So it's helpful to know what role fear plays and where it comes from. We put that to the panel, and this is what we learned.
Fear, it's really, I've been hearing a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And it is the fear that is keeping this from moving forward in a positive manner. Again, there are bad apples in there's bad apples in every system. There's even bad apples in the jail. There's bad apples in the prison system. When I used to go visit my son when he was in prison,
holy cow. I think some of the guards should have been in prison. So you're going to stop doing something because of fear? I think it's a great start, and there are people that have benefited from it, and they should be able to access it. It may not be perfect. And I think there's a lot of misinformation, because I honestly do not believe there are not that many people. I believe most of these people are under a doctor's care. And I think if you have it at a dispensary, you're working with the doctor, it will be much more effective, and it'll be followed much more rigorously than if people are doing it at their house. That's just my opinion.
Well, we'll dispute that.
I think that, at least for me, in my experience, and from what I see, is there's two avenues of fear here. There's the fear that patients aren't going to be able to use this therapeutic herb in a way that is going to benefit them. And then there's a fear that's being pushed on us by the opposition of there's going to be pot shops on every corner. There's this is just a crazy unregulated thing, and it's a fear-based tactic that the opposition is using to push their agenda. And we're dealing with a medical issue here, and the opposition uses an argument against a recreational argument. And so patients are fearful that they're not going to be able to access their medicine, and then fear is being pumped on us about the specter.
Isn't this really just a landslide, though? I mean, it happened in Colorado, it got medical, and then it became legal. And my parents are from Colorado, and there is a pot shop on every corner.
Sure, and that's a great argument. But what we're talking about right now is providing safe, accountable, reliable access for patients.
We'll dispute that, Katie.
Well, Tayln hit it the nail on the head as far as, the fear that I have that I'm not going to be able to ever have access to this, and I am not even halfway through my treatment. And I know people who are in my same situation who have those same fears, and there's new people being diagnosed every day. So this timeline of let's get it, perfect before we institute it is just, we can't wait. We can't wait, and we can't be denied. And I'm a little weary about talking about the boogeyman in the corner all the time, because with every solution comes a problem. We know that from, rhetoric. We know that from me as a problem solver. That's what I like to say that my job is like every solution has a problem. And for me, the good, even though it's a smaller number maybe, outweighs the bad. And I don't believe that Montanans are as bad and as corrupt as the opposition has represented uniformly.
And I don't have any fear about it. I really do base my opinion on my actual experience in the life as 27 years in the business of drug law enforcement in particular. And maybe it's a sad commentary on me as an individual to have that skepticism about our fellow humans, and that we're not talking about Montanans either, Katie, by the way. We're talking about people from elsewhere who come here and establish their businesses and for profit. And again, I go back to, in this room, I have some very passionate and compassionate people that want to do the right thing by you and others like you, as am I one of those people. But there are predators out there, and I don't mean to say, I don't mean to start fear. I'm telling you, for real life, predators that don't care whether any of us in this room live or die. They do care about the dollar. They do care about what new vehicle they're going to buy, and the multi-millions that they'll make off this industry. And for the record, if I were a drug dealer, I wouldn't deal in cocaine or methamphetamine or heroin or ecstasy or any drug other than marijuana. If I wanted to make a lot of money, I would be in the pot business, because that's where the money's at.
Out of your mind.
We've
Bob, and I know he's upset, if I may, and Bob, I'm sorry. Again, I'm addressing the people who are not scrupulous, and he's not listening, so.
I'm not worried about that.
I don't mean to insult you, Bob, and if you take that as in, I'm not categorizing everyone who grows in that light. I am categorizing the predators out there.
About a small percentage.
Well, wait, I don't even know. Even aside from that, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Bob, what role does fear play?
That.
Yes.
That. A federal agent. You were a federal agent.
Yes, sir.
You
27
did not
years.
work for the state.
No, sir.
Where this was legal.
Yes, sir.
You worked for the federal government where this is flat out illegal.
Yes, sir.
So you never looked at this medicinally. No, you looked at this as an illegal drug because that was your job. And that's what you're talking about.
That's the presumption that I arrested everybody that violated the law in my presence. I did not.
Right. You had to arrest
I did
anybody that dealt with marijuana. Am I right?
No. No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, so wait, you didn't follow the law?
That's correct.
So as your job, you
Many
didn't follow
times.
the law.
Yes, sir, many times. There was an occasion when a young man, I was at my daughter's birthday party,
So-
if I may. A young man, 19 years old, he rolls up with two of his buddies in the car. They park next to me. We're taking the birthday cake out to our vehicle. And he's cutting up his pot for he and his friends to share. I'm like, oh man, not now. So I tap on the window. I say, son, you can't be doing that here. They've just driven up, the three of them. He says, I got a green card. I said, I'm a federal agent. He goes, oh. I said, tell you what, you know and I know that the three of you are going to partake. I said to the driver, do you have a green card? No. The back seat? No. I said, here's what you got to do, because I'm a federal agent. Put your dope on the ground and grind it away into the dirt. Oh, but I just bought it, man. And I'm sorry. He was 19 years old. He didn't have a medical need for it. He was going to share it with his buddies in my presence. I said, make it go away.
You didn't have a medical.
How do I?
Now that is amazing. You shouldn't even be a federal agent if you can look at us and be able to tell that we don't have medical.
I think we can all agree that there's a lot of gray area around this topic. There's probably bigger deals.
But have I arrested everyone that has broken the law in my presence? Absolutely not, Bob. I can't. That's impossible.
So you have them grinded into the dirt.
Sure.
So I feel that
Is this fear?
yes,
Okay.
I feel that fear drives a lot of this.
Would I ever arrest Katie? Never in a million years. Would I arrest Jeannie? Never in a million years.
Would you arrest me?
It depends on what you're doing, Bob.
Well, hold on. I'm a patient.
Okay, but are you a dispenser? Do you have a
I'm a
dispenser?
provider.
A provider. And if you were diverting your product,
No, I'm not talking about that.
and we
at
did
all.
a proper investigation,
But I'm
as a
not
patient,
talking
no.
about that.
As a user, no, Bob. I would never.
So
It's not.
anyway.
So how do we move forward with medical cannabis? It sounds like we have very different opinions on the inherent risks of cannabis as a medicine. What would it take to ensure the safety of the drug and the safety of the patients who need it? Should this be left in the hands of the growers and bud tenders? Or should it be handled by the pharmacists like any other drug? And are there broader risks to the community if access to it gets easier for people?
Pharmacists distribute deadly drugs.
Oh,
I mean, no, I'm
Okay,
talking.
you're talking, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So why wouldn't they have training like that? I mean, they distribute drugs that can kill people every day. Marinol being one of those drugs. So what you had alluded to is 182 being a bad thing. 423 is not going away. So what we've tried to do with 182 is improve it with testing, with licensing, with all those things. Because right now, it's limited to somebody growing in their house, basically, if they want to provide for 3 patients. What we're talking about is a license program that allows for things. I personally, I'm not opposed to some sort of program with training and whatnot. Most of all states have them for people who want to work in a dispensary. You have to do that. One of the things that we did was allow for employees. There will now be a process that employees have to go through, be it background check and whatnot. So those are important, but to put cannabis in the same realm as narcotics, well, those are 2 very different things. And quite frankly, a pharmacist right now wouldn't be in any way, shape, or form able to dispense cannabis. They don't know anything about it. So they haven't been trained in it. In all those years that you talk about that they get training, they'd have zero in cannabis training. So,
well, the one thing you're missing is that marijuana just got reevaluated by the Food Drug Administration, right, the FDA, and it's a Schedule I drug for a reason. There are consequences to smoking the stuff and taking the stuff. So it's not like it's just a harmless green plant that doesn't do anything. I've seen it do all sorts of terror to my family over the 40 years I've studied it. And most of you aren't that old enough to see generation after generation of people smoking it for 40 years, moving up to the white stuff, getting hepatitis C, dying of cancer, and then thinking they smoked cigarettes for 35 years and pot. Well, this is serious. 51 years of age, and I've got a good brother-in-law that died. You know, what did he die of? Lung cancer. And it was marijuana and pot, or marijuana and cigarettes for 35 years.
Cigarettes.
So,
I'm 47.
Well, I'm just
so
telling
I'm
you.
not that far
Well, I
away from
agree,
it.
but
Let's
stay on topic. This is about bud tenders.
So this is to kind of tell on what you said is that there is a reason why pharmacy techs and pharmacists do have those years and years of school. They are dispensing potentially lethal drugs to people. Cannabis has never killed anybody. There's not a recorded case of it, and it's for those reasons that I talked about earlier, that the endocannabinoid system does not have receptors in the areas of your body that would allow it to kill you. So for that reason, there isn't the same kind of pressing need to have that kind of a thing. This is also an industry that quite frankly is in its infancy. Do I think that eventually there may be training that would be helpful for people who are dispensing this medicine to people? Of course. It's helpful to know the difference between what an indica plant and a sativa plant does, what different strains do, the different levels of THC and CBD and CBN and terpenes that are present in each of these different strains and how they're going to work. And everybody's individual body chemistry is slightly different. So, what works good for this person might not work the same for another individual.
That's why I personally like 182, because 423 leaves us with this 3-patient limit. And right now I can't find a provider. So that leaves me trying to become a horticulturist / expert in an area that I knew nothing about. And I don't have the energy or the money or the time to devote to knowing about it. Tayln just blew my mind with all these terminologies. And so, 182, we've got a bunch of amateurs without it trying to grow this stuff and handle this stuff. And if your concern, Steve, really is about quality and pureness and potency, having a bunch of amateurs grow their own stuff does not sound like the answer under 423, which is what we'll go back to if we don't have 182.
We'll go right here and then Steve.
Hi, I have been a cannabis provider for 10 years, and I would consider myself an expert in cannabis. I know a lot about cannabis, growing cannabis, and also patient care. So I'm an expert in cannabis, and I find it kind of insulting when Mr. Zabawa refers to bud tenders or people who work with patients as 18-year-olds, when I have been studying this plant and its effects on humans for a very long time. And there are also many, many studies that have been done, not only in the United States, all across the world, that show the efficacy of cannabis on many, many different things. While the opposition may say there's no real research, I can provide binders, 2 3-wing binders of research sites that are specifically sorted for cannabis and different maladies. So I would like the opposition to know that there are experts in the field, that we're not all 18-year-olds, and that we've done a lot of scientific research on fancy things like the endocannabinoid system and terpenes.
Well, the industry in Montana is split. Do we do recreation? Do we actually get serious and produce a good medicine protocol and a good medical product? And that's what I'm asking for. Just get a good medicine protocol. SafeMontana is all about medical marijuana moving forward, done correctly for Katie and whoever else as far as having that done. But SB 423 was designed to squeeze the recreational pot out of the I-148. We had a huge blow up, and it was all over my high school, junior high. I got 7 kids, and they were impounded with it during that time period. There was 4,500 providers. In I-182, you can have another 4,500 providers, and nobody ever says anything. Anybody can fog a mirror, can get a green card. It's that simple. And they've opened up the other things to get it. So we have in-state traveling doctors handling 4,000 people. How do you do that? You know, it doesn't work. They didn't put any limit on that. They should have just done a reasonable limit on in-state traveling doctors. Make sure that in SB 423, to Bob's point, is that they're supposed to be monitoring these patients that they put on the green card. In other words, they're supposed to come back every couple months and see what's going on. But they don't do that on a normal case. Some do, but most of them aren't. And it's just it's a ability to go from underground and get a green card and smoke your pot or do whatever you want with it for a full year, then come back and pay that doctor another couple $100, pay the state $75 and $50 more to grow it. It's a racket. So that's not medicine. So what I'd like to see is true medicine done for true patients on a regular basis. So that's the type of next stage that we need to get to. SB 423 is a good Band-Aid to get us to that. I-182 is absolutely horrid what can happen if it gets out of control. And there's nothing in the law here to stop it from getting out of control.
Let's go, Jeannie and Bob, and then Sarah as well. Go,
The
Jeannie.
one thing that I think is really lacking in this conversation, you're talking about doctors supervising. My granddaughter has so many doctors. We are in a doctor's office about every month. We go see a neurologist every 3 months. My guess is, Katie, you see a doctor quite frequently. People who are using this are being monitored by doctors. And I think that's something that's missing in this whole conversation.
If that's the case, that's great. I don't think it's the case out of the 13,000. I would say the majority aren't doing that. And that's from people that are in the system that tell me, I only go see them once a year, and I have to do it because I got to pay the $200. It's like they're pissed off because they got to pay the $200. And it's because they're not using it for medicine. They're using it for recreation. We have to squeeze the bad players out of the system, get the recreation out, and take care of the true people that have a symptom and have it monitored with a doctor like you normally in medicine. That's why malpractice insurance is required by people, and that's why 2,300 doctors in the state of Montana don't touch it. They would touch it if it was tested by humans, if it was monitored, if they knew that the supplier could be trusted. You know, that's our problem.
I have 2 pediatricians right now that would give me the prescription for medical marijuana that are not the doctor that you're talking about that travels through the state. I think it is not out of control as much as you think it is. You may have experience. Have you went out and talked to these 13,000 people? I know you haven't because you've never talked to my daughter who is on medical marijuana. So I think some of this is getting a little bit blown out of proportion. I think you personally have had a horrible experience with it. I think most of us in this room have seen some horrible experiences with addiction. Not every single person is going to have that experience, and if it saves your life, my granddaughter's brain is so atrophied from her seizures. She's not going to live much longer. I'm not going to have that opportunity to try and stop the seizures because I am so afraid of being arrested. These are a lot of people like that. My granddaughter is not unique, but I am so afraid because of this. Everybody is so paranoid about this.
Cutting through the rhetoric and differences of opinion, there has to be a common ground where all sides can meet. To close it out, we put that question to our panelists.
I think there is middle ground. There's one thing that I would caution with all of the investigating into people's records is the HIPAA law. Listening to you talk, it feels very invasive. And I have no interest in using cannabis, just for the record. But as an individual, I just want to use it on my granddaughter. But that, if I was a patient, that's between me and my doctor, and it's nobody's business. And but it should be regulated. And I agree it should be regulated. It should be standardized so that you know what's in it, the quality of it. That I think is where this needs to go.
There may be some tape, and the one of the largest problems I have with it is that we're letting voters decide on something so critical an issue that pertains to human beings' lives, and there is no other substance, no other medicine that voters have ever decided on. Secondly, look at what we're voting at nowadays in general. It's kind of, and we're going to vote about this issue too. Voters are having problems nowadays.
I hear a lot of people saying the same thing on either side, saying the same thing. But I know from the work that I do that your true intent has to be to reach resolution compromise when you're trying to reach middle ground or resolution or compromise. You have to intend to be there. Steve, when you put forward 176 and then you sit here and you say, okay, but I'm for parts of this and parts of this not, I don't know where your true interests lie. And so that's what prohibits me from comfortably saying, yes, I see middle ground. Text of the language, what I'm hearing said, yes, I hear middle ground, but I don't know that I'm feeling middle ground, because right now, where I am, you're either kind of with me or you got to get out of my way, because I got to get through this. I got to get healthy. I got to get through cancer. So there's not a lot of room for middle ground on my issue.
Tim?
I believe that there is middle ground as long as we're being honest and genuine about where our position is. I feel that middle ground is not achievable when, an individual like you, Steve, is creating, television commercials that are using an anti-recreational argument against a law that is designed and created to provide medicine for people. So that makes it very difficult to find a middle ground, because the two arguments are very different. And so if we are to come to middle ground, we first need to really agree on what it is that we're talking about in the first place and where we're headed.
Yeah.
So, would you all talk about this after tonight together?
Oh, absolutely.
Steve?
Yeah. This is going to be ongoing for not only, we need to do something quickly. Yeah. Done right, so, we're all in favor of that. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't want to have something done for the right reasons.
With that, we draw this episode to a close and encourage you to comment on our page and start a dialogue in your community. Remember, don't ruin dinner. This episode was produced by Dylan Jesse, Justin Wayne, and me, Tate Chamberlain. Music by Nintendo and Debuda. Our panelists were Jeannie Brown, Steven Zabawa, Bob Devine, Tayln Lang, Katie Mazurek, and Dan Dunlap. This episode was supported by Jen Spencer, Kyle Elliott, Kyle Brester, Kean Ahern, Montucky Cold Snacks, Ripple Sound, Ben Johnson, Pete Strom, and Barb and Ed Chamberlain. A special thanks to our board of directors, Debbie Shank, D. Gregory Smith, Kia Abbey, Chris Gentry, Chad Urashak, Yarrow Craner, Jacob Desch, Justin Wayne, and Tate Chamberlain. Do you have an issue that's riddled by gridlock in your community? Contact us at our website at iaminterchange.org. That's iaminterchange.org.